Welcome to this week's edition of Bases and Balls with Guardians broadcaster Jim Rosenhaus, brought to you this week and every week by Nika IBEW. So let's bring Rosie in right now. And Rosie, let's talk about this hot baseball team. 12 of 15. They're doing a lot of things right now. The game on Wednesday night was a perfect example. Clutch hitting, good bullpen pitching, and some big-time defense late in the game. Your observation, talk about what is really clicking well with this team right now.
You know, Ray, I don't think it's any coincidence that this hot stretch has coincided with the starting rotation starting to roll as I think a lot of people expected in spring training. It's several turns through the rotation now where everyone has been pretty solid and on a lot of days, much more than that. And they're pitching deep into games. And you mentioned the bullpen. They had the fewest innings in baseball, and that's important. Good bullpens that have a lot of innings are rare because it usually means they're coming in the fourth or fifth innings and trying to cover the last half of a game instead of just trying to cover, maybe an inning or two at the end of the game. Now, last night they had to cover a little bit more on Wednesday night. But for the most part, the starters are going 6-7 innings, and that's huge. So I think it all starts there. And then those other things you mentioned, some good defense and good bullpen work too.
Well, and it's been a staple with our franchise. It starts on the mound. And let's indeed talk about this bullpen. Might not be namesake names, but guys like De Los Santos is coming up big. And we talked last week about Eli and, of course, Clase at the back end. This bullpen is really molding into shape pretty well.
It really is. And it's interesting. Nick Sandlin, we've seen him better, but you look up and he hasn't allowed a run. Now, he's walking the tightrope a little bit with walks, so you feel like he'll get better. Trevor Stephan has gone through some stretches here lately where he struggled a little bit, but you know what's in there, and you figure that he'll be even more dominant. And again, when we say these guys are struggling a little bit, they're not. It's just we've seen them a little bit better, so you feel like they could be even better. So, look, it runs in cycles sometimes, but they are getting contributions from everybody. Brian Shaw with a couple of wins in Colorado with clean innings, and it takes everybody, but it always helps when you have that closer at the back end that you feel really confident in the ninth inning. It seems like once you have that, everything else falls into place.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about the bullpen. One of the guys last year that was a staple, but has been battling back from the injury, and that's Karinchak. What do you know of where he is right now, Rosie?
Well, he's at Columbus, and he's on that regular schedule. It seems like about every third day he'll get an outing. You got to remember, Ray, he didn't have any spring training. I think he made maybe one appearance, if any, in the spring. So this is kind of his spring training. Technically he's on a rehab assignment. They'll use the whole thing to make sure he has enough appearances, and then they'll evaluate to see how he's throwing. Because remember, he had been sent to Columbus a year ago and did not, he was away from the ball club at AAA for quite some time. So, they want to make sure that not only is he healthy, but that he's throwing the ball well. So I think he's a ways away yet. They want to make sure that he gets enough appearances down there before they really look at whether he's an option up here.
One guy that's getting closer is Franmil Reyes. And I bring that up because the big fella can pop the ball when he is right, and he's big for us in the middle of that lineup. But other guys have been given the opportunities, and they've been coming through. Gonzalez and Quan and Owen Miller. We can go on and on with the young guys that have stepped up for us in Franmil's absence. Talk about maybe a difficult decision on the horizon, Rosie, when Franmil is ready to be activated to the roster.
I think you're right, Ray. It's not going to be easy. I also, though, he's not coming back tomorrow or over the weekend. I think they want to make sure he's okay and also gets his swing going down there. So, the short-term plan as of yesterday, and it's fluid, they want to see if maybe he can be in the outfield a little bit over the weekend, if that's an option. It may not be yet, but I think before he comes back here, they want him to get in the outfield a little bit. They want to get that swing going. they're not in a rush because he was in a real tough spot. Not only was the hamstring barking, but he wasn't swinging well. So they want to just give him a chance to go play, be healthy, find that good swing. And then when the time is right, they'll make the decision. There's no sense in looking down the road, a week to 10 days or whatever it may be. Maybe it's shorter than that. But whenever that time comes, usually these things have a way of working themselves out. You hope nobody gets hurt or anything like that. But these things always have a way of working themselves out. When he's ready, there'll be a spot and they'll make the best decision that they can make.
And Rosie, when he is right, he's so important to the middle of that lineup behind J-Ram, correct?
I think so. And especially, there's not a whole lot of power on this team. The Guardians are down near the bottom in terms of home runs. And again, if you're scoring runs, it doesn't matter how. But would they like to have a big bopper in the middle of the lineup? Of course. And we saw a year ago, 30 home runs, 85 driven in. That's hard to replace. So they'd love to have that Franmil Reyes. And if that's the case, everything will be great when he comes back. So we'll see. But it is a nice option to have.
All right, let's wrap it up. This week's edition of Bases and Balls. Guardians broadcaster Jim Rosenhaus going into Los Angeles to take on one of the better teams in baseball, the Dodgers, even though they've been stubbing their toe as of late. Preview the weekend with the Dodgers for me, Rosie.
Yeah, you never like it when a good team's manager says, "Hey, we need to play a little better." They're already good. I think most people would say if they don't make the World Series again, it's a disappointment for them, and that's just where they're at in terms of their recent history. And the moves they made in the offseason and the amount of money they spend on payroll, all of that stuff. It's a really, really good team. There's all-stars at every position. But everyone's been saying that this good stretch that the Guardians are in has come against bad teams or below 500 teams, if you want to call it that. So I think this team's kind of looking forward to playing the upper echelon of teams in baseball, and they'll get that opportunity, a heavy dose of that over the next 3 weeks. And it starts with the Dodgers in LA on Friday night.
You can only defeat who's in front of you. That's what I like to say. And the Guardians taking care of business. Rosie, as always, you're on the road. Thanks for joining us. Always appreciate the time, my friend. We'll look forward to the calls from Los Angeles the entire weekend long. Keep my good friend Tim Alcorn company, and we'll catch up with you again next week.
You got it, Ray. Thanks.